Eric, thank you so much for joining me on this week's podcast. I really appreciate your time that you're doing this. I think it's going to help a whole lot of students. My goal when I started these like video podcasts is to give people a deeper insight because as I'm teaching the online classes that you're attending, and you do it so diligently, you're always there, you're attending, and I can see the lights going on in your head. It's always interesting because within an hour there's only so much I can accomplish, and I know that people want to work physically. Of course, they sit too much, right? So we want to work physically, but there's so much going on in my head and that I want to express. But people also want to work. Like you got to balance that. You want to listen, but they want to work too, right? So the big reason for these podcasts is that I can share some deeper insight into the work that we did in that week. And I saw you taking notes, and I said, "Hey, Eric, you want to join me on the podcast?" And you said, "Yeah, sure, let's do it." So I'd love to hear your questions you have. And I'll do my best to connect it to like all my teachings, but this week specific about strikes, right? Because we were talking about strikes, and I love this because you had no preparatory work. You just said, here, I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions, which is something I would have loved as a student. When I was really training, I would have loved to have been able to just say, can I ask some questions? But it was not really the norm back in those days, right? That times have changed, right? So
Mm,
I'd love to hear some of your questions, and I will do my best to answer them as honestly as I can, meaning as straight as I can. There's so many ways we can take to getting to the heart of something, and I want to just get there as fast as I can for everybody. So ask me your questions, man. I'd love to hear what you
great.
what you have for the week. Okay.
Thank you, Emmanuel. Yeah, it was a really lovely week. So we're working on strikes this week, and some of the things that showed up for me around strikes, we were working on our fists and bringing our awareness to our fists, and actually there was all this energy about relaxing my hand so that it was inert and didn't have like an emotional charge to it.
Hmm.
And there was something that you said there that also felt really strong. It was later in the class when you said they're just movements. And I'm wondering if you could go into a little more depth about like they're just movements. Like they don't
Okay,
they don't
sure.
have a specific meaning to them automatically.
Well, every movement has a meaning that you give it to, right? So I'll give you an interesting. When I first started working out, my whole thing, like physically working out, I was just 15 years old, and I happened to have a double spare in high school, and I had nothing to do for 2 hours. I had a lunch and then a spare, and a good buddy of mine dragged me into the weight room, and I just started working out for. I guess with the camaraderie and just the social connection, right? Because there was nothing to do. Everybody was in class in the spare, so the weight room was open and my buddy was there. And I just started working out with him. And, when you get into that culture of like weightlifting and that, early on, and I realized that I could put on muscle quite easy. It started my physical education journey through the whole thing. And it was really interesting because I was working out for years and it was go hard. That was the effort. You go really hard, you push it, right? The effort is go hard. Um, and then I was helping somebody on a friend of my father's who was renovating his house. And, he was, digging holes and carrying cement and shingles and all that stuff. And every time I lifted something with the way I did it in the weight room, like with muscular effort, it was like, no, 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 that's not right. It's too much. You're using too much effort. You're going to be exhausted. And I was like, oh, and I thought that was weird because I was in this stupor and I realized I didn't know at that time, but it's been about the last, let's say, 10 years now that I'm working with this concept of the right effort and finding the right effort for a situation. That's so important to me. It's like, it's not working hard or working late. It's just what is really necessary for the situation, right? What is the exact amount that you need to do? Okay. And that's a real professional version. It's not doing over amount, right? It's so think about that for a second. A lot of people pick up their fists and it's just either knock the guy out or it's either on or off. Either you're gonna die or hurt you so much or nothing. They don't have that sensitivity in their fists to understand how to do just enough, right? And and finding the right effort or the amount to do the right effort is takes training. That's so hard, right? It's so
Mm,
hard. It's no different than um a speaker finding the right words to communicate a message, right? Not more, just what needs to be communicated. It's very precise, right? So think about that in your daily lives. Just the right effort to grab your coffee and have a drink. You're not working harder. You just need just enough to get it from here to there. Same with chewing your food. Same with anything you want. You want just the right amount of effort, and that seems so awkward when it comes to striking, right? Most people never found that. So a lot of the ways I trained you is that you understand that drill with the fist, right? That when you close your fist and you close it hard with too much effort, you start to get angry. When you close it just the right way, right? When you just the right way, it's perfect, right? It feels good. I'm not angry. I'm able to make a fist without the need, right, to strike, right? And this is an interesting thing to think about, the right effort.
So, so something that I find myself coming up against when practicing, when we've been practicing strikes this last week, is I can, like, and from what you're saying now, like I can imagine picking up my cup of tea, right? And we were working with bands the other day, and
Yeah.
I didn't have a band with me, so I imagined a band, and I felt like I was getting exactly what I needed imagining my band because I know that tension well.
Hmm.
I've never like maybe I've never like I've never been in a real fight and like actually slugged someone like to hurt them or anything, or I've like played with friends has been it, right?
Hmm.
So um and I don't want to hurt anybody. So when I'm
Sure.
practicing and I'm practicing my impact, you know, like when I'm throwing, when I'm practicing, I don't know, like I know how to pick up the cup imaginarily. I can play with the band imaginarily with the right amount of tension, but I don't know how to do that with the punch. And also the extra point is like with Sistema, I know there's some magic relationships that happen in what happens like along the line of the punch. There's something you referred to yesterday too. I want to ask you about later. So like how do you conceptualize the impact? Like how do I imagine what is the right effort if it's actually like impact if I'm impacting another human body?
It's great questions, man. It's great question. So you're going in a lot of different directions, right? And I'll try to steer it in the one I think that but you might have other thoughts, I'm sure. But so listen, I don't want anybody to get into real fights. I mean, I grew up in a time where um it was like you had to fight. People always checked you, right? Like you in high school, they always, that's the way guys would check each other, right? And I don't see that now in schools as much as it was for me. Like every generation doesn't see as hard as it was for them, right? But I'll give it to you this way. Put the real fighting aside because we spend more time training, right? So I'll give you some stories what happened to me. So I punched hundreds of thousands of people in training, not mad, but just to develop people, right? So, do I have the sensitivity in my fist to be able to hit somebody hard enough so that they feel uncomfortable, so that they grow, but not too hard where I touch their ego and they feel worthless? And you see this very typically in kids that are like 16, 17 years old. They look like men. They could be really strong. Their testosterone is getting in there. They're feeling all cool until you hit them a little too hard. And then you see right away how fragile their ego is. It can be shattered very quickly, right? And that, so when working with like teenage age kids, they look like real men. They look like they can take it, but I've seen a wrong punch go in just a little too deep. And now that young boy feels fragile. And it takes a long time to develop the maturity to take strikes the right way, to understand that when you got hurt you'll get stronger. You just got to get through it, so to speak, right? That's a real maturity aspect. So we need to have that sensitivity so that when you're hitting somebody, you know how to develop them, because that's really what we spend most of our time in martial arts doing, is developing people. We don't spend most of our time hurting people in real life. That's just not the reality for most, especially now. Like especially
But how do
now,
you do that in practice? Like when
you
you're
you start
practicing,
slowly.
if I'm
You
throwing in the air and I'm, you know, it's like if I'm throwing a practice punch, or if I'm doing it like where I'm imagining an impact. What's the impact I'm imagining? Am I like
well
punching a coffee cup in the
nowadays.
air? Am I punching a punching bag? Like
nowadays, I mean, because it's kind of separate with COVID stuff. Like there's no contact, there's no nothing. But if we can go back to the time when we could actually push each other, right? When there was actually a class, and you would develop it with pushing. You can't really develop it just with imagination. There is a lot that you can do with the mental side of training, and I have spent a lot of time on that. But you need some point of reference. It can't just all be mental training, right? So an impact. There's many ways to visualizing an impact, but if you think of the human body as mostly water, right? Think of it as water, right? That's a good place to start. So when you're hitting, let's say, a ball that's full of water, what's happening inside? The water is moving, right? The blood and all that you have in your body. When there's an impact on the body, there's a vibration that's going through the body. So you need to think of it as more of a vibration, and it's more of a vibration that you send through a person, right? And that vibration is being picked up by what? It's being picked up by the muscles, being felt in the muscles, but it's being picked up by the nervous system. And the nervous system takes it to the spine, it takes it up to the head. And that's where you feel your pain, right? So you get a deep shot to the gut, it hits the solar plexus, it communicated directly to the nerves in the stomach, which give you pain, shoots it up to your head, and you bend over, right? You're bending over, wincing in pain. So that's like a logical explanation, but to feel it is quite different, right? So when in training, I always tell people you should start a lot by push people a lot, right? And the same when you're practicing at home, push lots of things. You can push heavy things, push a door closed, a heavy door, then push a coffee cup, and then tomorrow push a cupboard closed. Like, use your fists more. You can do various push-ups. You can do different angles, walk up a wall, walk down a wall with your fist. And what you're doing is you're trying to find the right amount of sensitivity on your fists, right? You're trying to
Yeah.
find out that. So I'm not trying to pretend to fight. I'm just trying to gain the sensitivity. Can you massage somebody? We all have loved ones at home, right? So if they're, let's say, they've got tension from us being online all day, try to massage them with your fist. So now, can your fist heal somebody? Do you have enough sensitivity to actually massage somebody with your fist? Then later on, you have enough sensitivity to close the garage door, the heavy garage door closed with your fist, right? And then that leads to better. The more you use the fists in different ways, the more you see them in different ways, right?
Yeah.
And then the intention, then you have to look at like the mental side of it. So it was one interesting class years ago where I was training, and you come across this all the time as a teacher. You always want to help people, right? But inevitably you will come across a person that needs a hard lesson. They really need a hard lesson, and you have to be able to give it to them without being angry. You have to be able to do that, and that doesn't mean hurt them. That means giving them enough that will frustrate them so that they grow. That's the most important. It's not like, as a teacher, you don't want to be a bad person, but some people learn that way. That's just the way some people are. I am sure you have some people in your life, friends or family
How do you?
members.
Yeah. How do you check your own ego when you're doing that though?
You
Like that's
have
the
to spend
big like
time.
like
You have
like
to spend time on yourself. You've got to be quiet inside. If you're not spending time praying, meditating, being a good person in nature, like really calming yourself, you shouldn't do this work. You can't. It's limiting. You need to be clean. You need to understand that when you're going to make that decision, that there is no bias on. There'll always be a little bit of a bias, but listen, what do good people do? You have to. I'm not perfect. The best doctor is still going to make a diagnosis. He has to make a guess based on his feeling of what he thinks. I look at somebody, and when the words are not registering, they need to feel it. And then when they feel it, then something comes up, and then they need to see that more. Like, you have to be able to go deeper and deeper and deeper with the person. So there was a class. I just didn't finish my thought. There was a class where I was working with people, and then eventually the so I wasn't teaching the class, I was attending the class. And this was early on my teaching years. So I was like, very early on in my teaching, I would teach some classes, and then I would participate in others, and we just did it like that. And there was one class I was participating in, and people were coming for help for me. They would see me and say, can you help me with stuff? People were trusting me. That's what, when you're a good person, people start to trust you, and then they don't mind giving themselves to you to work, right? They want to feel that, right? Because they know that you're good, and that whatever you do is from a good place, and then they trust you, which is what most people do. But there was a guy in class who was quite evil. I'll say it like that, just an evil guy. And you know, he came to me, but not in a way to learn something, in a way to prove something. And then when he couldn't prove what he wanted to prove, he tried to get more physical with me. And he did a few things that if I wasn't as calm as I was, he would have hurt me. And then inside me, everything registered like this person is dangerous, because they're dangerous because they're careless, right? And he came at me in a way that was careless again, and I just hit him super hard and not with a good intention. And he looked at me and he was hesitating to come again. And he was looking at me, and he started to come and then stop. I said, so what you're feeling is very correct. The next move you do, the next punch that you feel is going to hurt you very bad right now. And everything intentional was, you're going to get knocked out. If you take any step towards me, you're going to get knocked out. I wasn't even hesitating. I was like, nope, you've crossed the line and you've scared me inside. And I was trusting this feeling. You know, when you're in front of a guy that is so dangerous, there is only one answer. There's don't ever let you letting them get close to you to even touch you is your fault. Right. And this is during the class. Like, here I was helping somebody. 5 minutes later, I'm telling somebody the next move he makes, it's not going to be, and it wasn't a threat. It was just, I was from my heart. I wasn't scared to throw this punch. And I realized at that moment that my training has taken me a long way. I had the sensitivity at that moment to truly understand the next one is, and I was comfortable in doing it. The person just needed to comply. So I didn't go overboard. I didn't go towards a guy and just smack him out. I stayed calm until I felt that. Now, I'm not saying that to give some ego or I'm so good or something, but I'm just telling you that moment was 5 years in the making. That was 5 years of quieting myself, understanding, pushing people, developing people. And by doing that, I understood good. And now I have a point of reference of what's bad. And guys, I would love to change everybody from a good person to from a bad person to a good person, but we can't all the time. Bad people sometimes are just bad, and that's just the way they are. And we just have to know how to deal with them, right? So I didn't become a bad person. I stayed a good person, but I knew where that line was clearly drawn in me. I knew where it was. I knew that that person was past the point of talking or logic. They just needed what there was coming for them. And luckily that never happened, but I was comfortable in that moment. And that doesn't happen by you being angry. You understand that? You can't do that if you're an angry person. If you really want to learn how to deal with people, you have to know what is the right effort. What is the right effort? That's very important, right? There was another analogy I remember. If you guys, for those of you that like boxing, there was a moment when where Muhammad Ali was knocking out George Foreman in the 7th round of a big fight, and he just hit him. Here's this Goliath of a man Muhammad Ali was fighting, and he just beat on him for 7 rounds. Like, literally, that's where all that George Foreman, guys. If any of you are watching that haven't seen this fight in Zaire with George Foreman and Muhammad Ali, he was like Arnold Schwarzenegger big. He was massive man, and he was pummeling. How many people watching this could say you're going to let a big 200+ pound guy pummel on you for 7 rounds? So do the math. That's like, I don't know, 30 minutes of pummeling, not 3 minutes. 30 minutes of pummeling. And then finally, when this big behemoth was tired and Muhammad Ali just hit him with a few punches, and he got staggered. As this big man is falling, he's falling slow because big men fall slow, right? He could have punched him another 2 times, but he didn't. He didn't want to me. He had his fist cocked and he's watching this guy. And back in that day, you could throw a couple extra punches. It was fine. He just held his fist, and he didn't want to wreck the epic moment of this big man finally going down in a heap with a few silly punches. He already knocked him out, and he was on his way down, and he just watched this, and he watched this big man fall. And how many of you could have held your fist back when a man was beating on you like that? It was very epic. To me, it showed how great, what made Muhammad Ali great is that he knew what was enough. He knew the right effort. He said, I want to knock the guy out. I have done that. There was no anger in this man towards this, which is amazing, right? That's what I found was crazy. And yet he got in with some very dangerous fighters. So it was very interesting. And those are like wonderful, hallmarks, and think of it, guys. Don't go far. Let's look at Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee he majored in philosophy. He was a philosopher, even though he was a fighter, like he was known for his fighting. But even his own family, when he went to university and went to schooling, he didn't decide to major in physical education. He majored in philosophy. His family was like, really? He was a philosopher. He had a deep philosophical root to him. Um, and here's a guy that is heralded as such an amazing martial artist, right? We need to be able to ask ourselves when we're developing strikes some deeper questions as to what this is about. Like, what are you trying to accomplish, right? And usually at the beginning, Eric, it's people want to do things for their ego. Like, I'm young, I want to prove to everybody that I'm tough. I'm young, I'm just a new lawyer. I want to prove that I'm successful. There's a lot of ego involved. And that's the first part of our journey. And then as time goes on, you leave that idea, it starts to leave you, and you start to understand the second half of your journey, which is a little bit more in the service of people. So what are you doing in the service of people? Like, how are you gonna, what does this skill do after you're gone? Like, after you're done proving how good you are, now what? Like, what's left, right? So after you've punched enough people out, how many does that need to be? I don't know, right? And then you say to yourself, wonder what else I can do with my fists, and if you can help people, make them become better people, and help them show their pain or their suffering or their anger, and it can get rid of it. That's, to me, that's a bigger objective than just knocking somebody out, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
So yeah, thank you. So you had mentioned in there was something, another thing I was wondering about is there's something about like the ego, and we identify the ego with the body, right? Like, this
yep,
is me, I am this. And
yep.
there's something that came to me yesterday in class yesterday, and it's something that I see in you a lot, but I had a slight little, like, a light bulb, like, starting twinkling on it a little bit, of like, it's as if when I see you work, I see the energy moving through you,
Mhm.
and it's the energy's not, it doesn't feel like you're thinking. It's like the energy moving through a rope that you go like that, or a whip. Like, it's moving on its own, and it moves through you. And I think it's like, and I'm wondering how, and I you work us you do so much work with us to do like visualization, and also to like feel energy moving through our body, and to really to see inside
Yep.
ourselves energy moving through us. And then I wonder, like, how do you, like, when you're working that way, are you actually like having, like, is there like a line, like, is there like a cord that moves through your arm and like right out of your fist, and it comes to this teeny little like pinpoint, and then it how do you conceptualize it?
Well, so great question, man. A great question. So I think I don't just want to talk. I want to give people something concrete. Okay. So here's a little exercise that everybody listening can do to help understand how to grow past yourself, right? If you really want to grow, like, a punch is not, remember, I was trying to show you guys that it grows through a person. A lot of people think, oh, punch through a guy. Sure. I mean, you could visualize that, or you could just think of the punch growing, right? Through the person. So if you're either lying down or sitting down, what you do when you close your eyes is you imagine like a little light inside your like solar plexus here, like a little light, small light, and it starts to shine, and you allow that light to grow as much as you can, equally all around you. And you might at the beginning only be able to manifest that light in your chest, and then, with some breathing and relaxation, you start to imagine that the light maybe encompasses all of you, so like it's shining on you like sun. And then you, with a little bit more relaxation, a little bit more idea, you imagine the light shines the whole room, so you like become like a big glowworm, those little kids toy with the whole thing glows, right? And you keep imagining and visualizing as far out as you can go. and there come the time, like if you can light up the street, if you can light up the block, if you can light up the city, if you can light up the country, if you can light up the world. And it's that energy is an outward energy of expression, right? There's some really special monasteries in some parts of Greece, I'm sure all over the world, but I know the ones in Greece quite well. And the priests there, they pray all the time. They pray like their main thing is they just pray all the time as much as they can, and they pray very simple prayers. And I believe in their thoughts, they realize that not a lot of people pray, so they're trying to pray for everybody that's not praying, and they send those prayers out. They don't keep them to themselves. They believe that they send them out into the air, into the world, and to go to the world. They visualize praying for the world, right? They truly mean this. And it's very interesting to see that kind of thing, or to understand that people think like that, right? It's quite deep. Their prayer is in service of the world. How's that for a business card? What do you do for in service of the world, right? And what happens is you start to your energy starts to, instead of shrinking, because life beats us down, it throws all kinds of energy, right? And people ask me, how do you not let things affect you, right? Because this is interesting. Like during the pandemic thing, right? Of all my family, of my whole family, I'm the only one that's actually been affected. Okay, like people, most of my family still has their job, they have their home, they have everything. They've only been affected by not being able to go out. I'm the only one that's affected. I'm the only one that's had my life turned upside down. Yet they complain all the time. I don't complain. They complain all the time. They won't shut up. I'm like, every day they're complaining, and I'm like, I'm the one that should be complaining. So really, it's incredible to watch, Eric. I'm like, because I listen. I said to myself early, I'm not about, like, the Fight Club is not me. I'm me. Like my passion for martial arts, and nothing has developed me more than martial arts ever in my life. Right? It's with me. Nobody can take this. Right? Maybe they can close the Fight Club down. They can close the school. They can say we can't train it for now. But it's not me. I'm me. Like, it's me. Emmanuel's me. It's not attached to my title. It's
But
not
it's an
attached to.
expression of you. And
It
it's
is. It's
such,
still an
and it's
expression.
beautiful,
No,
and you're
no.
so attuned to it. Like
I know. I know. Believe
you're
me,
so
Eric.
attuned to it, and I know that you know that. Like you're so connected to it, and you create such a beautiful space.
Yeah.
Like,
I
but you're
look
not
at,
attached to it.
no, because, but when I'm there, so my operating system is from above, so it comes through you, right? Spirit, you have a strong spirit, and that shines down and it works through you. Okay, that's how it works. So you imagine a light, it goes out and it grows. Okay, and then what I make my body is, how I make my body is that I allow energy to come in, but I also allow energy to go out. I don't keep energy. I'm not hoarding it. Okay, you're not. It's like, what are you hoarding your energy for? Saving it for what? If you feel good, share it. If you feel empty, get it. Right. So you should always, and by being full of energy, right? Like you went running out into the forest, right?
Huh?
You are running, right? Look at the energy of a forest. I'm going to go tomorrow into the forest. I'm so excited. It's full of energy. I love it. You can't have a problem in there. You feel so good, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm full now of energy, right? And I love that feeling. So any problems, when they try to get in, but they can't, because there's no room in my body. I'm full of good stuff. So when you fill yourself with good thoughts, good food, good energy, good places, good people, when the problems come, they still come, but there's no room, right? It's like an old nightclub from years ago. Sorry, we're full. The doorman says, "Sorry, you can't get in. It's just, we're all full now, right?" They'll try to pay you off, but we're full. Sorry, we can't go ahead. VIP is full. So I'm sincere with this, right? And now you add strikes. Now you add strikes, okay, to the mix. And strikes is an accelerated emotion. It accelerates. So if you're happy, I've seen this. If you're happy, you punch people, they become more happy. Meaning if you're a good striker, if you know how to strike. If you're sad, it'll make you sad. And it's okay, because maybe, because especially men, they bury their emotions so deep, and we need to get it out. And so this helps you release it a little bit. If you're angry, you'll see there was some. I didn't see this, but I only heard about the seminar where Michael was punching some guy and he just ripped off his shirt in the middle of the seminar. Literally, he couldn't handle it. He has so much ego, and when the punch came and hurt him, his ego couldn't take it. He just ripped his shirt right there in front of hundreds of people. Just ripped his shirt and started running around the gym. I only heard about it. I was laughing because Michael he just knows how to punch this good, right? And Vlad, of course, as well. He's surgical with his punches, And but again, very clean and very clean and honest. If you don't do that work, you can't punch people. Don't punch people, right? And I understand some people listening to this might say, you might think you're clean, okay, but you're not. And I say that to myself. I always double check myself, and you know how you ask yourself, are you clean? And don't answer the question. Think about it for a day. And you realize, because initially you say, yes, I'm good. I do this, I'm good. But then later, as the day goes on, you sit there and say, no, I have some problems.
Right? What do you do when you're not clean? Because
most of the time, first of all, don't be
most
upset
of the time
about
I'm
it.
not. Most of the time I've got some shit there.
Yeah. So just look at it. Just look at it and say you're human. That's it. You're not perfect, but at least you can say it, right? And so just be honest with yourself, right? And it's so good. It's so good to have that. So when you strike, and then I ask lots of questions. When I never strike somebody, I always ask, how do you feel? I watch, I observe, I listen, I feel. Like, you do just hit people. Like, I see people carelessly hitting people. And I think because the guy buckled over, they did a good punch or something. And I don't understand this at all. It's super careless, right? Be very attentive to what you're doing with strikes, right? And now we have this time with COVID where we can't hit each other because we're just online like we're doing now. And we're having these deep talks. You can train 80% of your strikes without a person by training sensitivity, and your sensitivity of tension, right? Sensitivity of emotional connection, sensitivity physically pushing things, right? A door, a cupboard, something harder, it's no problem. There are times I have a bag at the club, or I just have it there more for the kids class. Sometimes the kids like punching it. But I'll punch it every once in a while, and I say to myself, 10%, 20%, 30%, 40%. I never punch it. I always give myself a number. I say 67%, bang, and I hit it, and I was like, no, that's like 72, and people laugh, right? Like, I don't know if it's right, but I will never allow myself to punch without knowing, was it the right effort? What number did I give? So if I turn you to say 50, boom, is it 50? And you have to ask yourself, okay, yes, 100, bang, is that 100? No, it's not 100. Like, you didn't give 100. Like, you realize that you really have to know that you can command your effort on the moment, on the moment. You ever watch the tennis player hit a ball? They can do a little drop shot or they can smash it, but they know their effort. They know exactly what has to happen at that tennis racket. You have to do the same thing with your strike. That ball, a physical tennis ball, right, is a manifestation of the energy you're putting in somebody. Is it a light touch? Is it a heavy? And believe me, the light touch can be just as powerful. They both going to score a point in tennis. Okay. Sometimes a kind word can disable a guy more than a punch. A light touch is sometimes. Don't ever underestimate the power of a light touch. I've seen it sometimes. It can have a drastic effect, right? And then, instead of, like, people often make too much of training. Training it gives you some ideas, but your life is training, right? So another quick story. Not too long ago, this happened to me. I was in a quite a big fight. Just stuff went so really quickly, and people weren't listening to me, and I was in a massive fight where I can't even count how many people there were, and I did great. I mean, I really wanted people to go away. I really wanted people to stop, but they just kept coming at me, and they just kept getting hurt. And to the left, to the right of, Oh, about 5 years ago. So I don't want to get into the whole story, but I will tell you the part that I will tell you the part that I loved the most was there was a young man, maybe 19 somewhere years to the right of me. I'll never forget him. And he was part of the group, and he was in a position to fight, but he didn't have a lot of courage. He was just bouncing around, and he was totally scared because he was watching me just knock people left and right. And it was a bloodbath. There was just a lot of blood, none of it my own. And police came. It was a horrible scene. But I only got hit once, and only they were trying. I kept moving. I just kept hitting people. But this one kid, right towards the end of the fight, just before the police got there, I'm just checking everybody. All of a sudden, here, bang, and I got hit. So I was like, I look over, and it was the kid. He threw a punch. He got me. I didn't expect it. And I looked at him and I was like so happy. I was like, that's awesome. You actually threw I didn't believe you had the punch hit you. I didn't believe it. And he did it. And what went through my head was, well, it's a big fight. I guess I had to get hit once. At least somebody had to touch me. Would be unbelievable. And I was happy for the kid. I really was.
Really?
I
Like
enjoyed
you
it.
just
I
had
was like,
love in your heart for him in that moment?
it was so happy for him because I said, all these idiots, you deserve to touch me. You deserved it. I didn't, because I truly said you couldn't hurt me. I didn't feel that he could touch me.
Yeah.
He looked too scared, but he had it in him. He got the courage to throw that punch. And I could appreciate that. And I don't
Did he see
know.
you smile?
No, I looked at him. I said, "Oh, I didn't say," because as soon as he hit me, he jumped back 20 feet. It was like it was so because he just watched his friends get hurt pretty bad. So he was like, it's fine. It's okay. I had to get, I mean, if I had to be somebody to hit me, who better than you? I'm happy for you. There's something came, but it was, and I tell that story not because I don't want to talk about anything else that happened because it was just crazy. And um, anytime people see that you're good, they're going to send more people. It won't end. Like you got to realize that if people see you're good, they'll pull out a knife, they'll pull out a gun. They see you're good. They'll always look. So just more people kept coming and just kept ending bad for them. And then this one kid, that's what I remember the most. I love that memory because it showed me it wasn't all the people that I hit and hurt that mattered to me, but that I had enough humility to understand that and appreciate the courage that that boy took to hit me. And it was like at the moment I wasn't angry at all. So I felt I didn't lose myself, which is really important. Like in the middle of battle, you have to be able to appreciate there are some beautiful things that happen. There's courage, there's empathy, there's compassion, there's a lot that goes on. It's not all what people think. Okay, there's a lot that goes on in life, and you have to be able to see those things happening. You have to be able to see the guy that gives somebody some food, a homeless person, or help somebody. Like if you're not, then you're not looking for the right things, right? So
Mm.
it was one of my favorite memories, and it showed me that, and it really proved to me that my training was producing the things that I wanted. I wanted humanity and humility. I wanted that. And even in the middle, so it didn't happen at the club, it didn't happen in training, it happened in real life. And we have to be able to do that, right? And um this is big, and how many people hit me in training for me to feel that humility, I don't know. But I will tell you guys, there was a period in my training where 2 years specifically, Eric, I didn't punch anybody in training. Only people punched me. I didn't punch anybody. And it was on the request of Vladimir. I remember he asked me, he said, listen, he goes, because I felt like, I don't know, I wasn't developing. He goes, you should let more people hit you. Let more people hit you a lot and try to learn your strikes through other people hitting you. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. I'll try it. Like all good people, you try to listen to your teacher, and it doesn't mean that day, it means for a bit. So then the first 2 months, I didn't like it too much. But then after I really started to learn and develop the sensitivity on my body to feel strikes and how a good strike felt, right? And how a bad strike felt and how a careless strikes felt. And then that helped me deliver my strikes better because now I had a better awareness. I could
Mm.
feel it more, right? Um, and that I probably wouldn't have had that. So when the kid hit me across the face, I could feel that he had to have a lot of courage to do that, and I could appreciate that. I wasn't so blind by ego and say, "How dare you touch me, untouchable bullshit," kind of stupidity like
Mm.
that. So you really, so whenever you see some great things, try to understand the works behind it. Like try to go deeper, and then give it time. Be patient. Like it doesn't seem like much, but you pushing a cupboard closed with your fist, nobody will even notice that. Don't break the cupboard, right? But just close it. And can you close the fist or the door perfectly that it doesn't slam? Right? Like think of it, those things, right? And then this fist becomes much more than just a jackhammer, but it becomes a precision instrument, a precision tool that you are in fully control of, right? You ever watched a guy with a chainsaw make art with wood? Like most people, that's it. They just cut a tree. This guy can make art with that damn thing, right? Have
Mm,
you ever have you ever seen a good skinner, like a good person that can skin an animal? Oh my god! Like they hold it with two fingers and they can completely skin an animal. Or a good butcher, carve into a salmon. Like it's like there's nothing wasted. It's beautiful. Like meanwhile, most people just like hacks,
yeah.
right? Who are we using as the measure of success? It's these guys, aren't we? Like I love looking at people that can do art with a chainsaw. Like most people, I love watching what somebody can do with their fists, right? And like art, like precision tool, not just a jackhammer to punish somebody, right? Or just a tool
Mm,
to cut a tree down. I mean, Jesus,
mm,
you can make art with a chainsaw. You can do that. It's beautiful, right? And that's a long lost tradition because we're so fixated with martial arts as a violent thing because of media, and we want to make it like entertainment, right? They don't focus on that stuff, right? So it's important to me, right? So I hope, like, it's such a deep conversation that we had, that you take something like strikes and extrapolate it. You ever seen those Russian dolls that fit into each other? They
mhm.
they, they kind of collapse into. Every time you train, it's like you open up, and you open up, but then when you're finished, everything fits into one doll, right? And it's all, but training should, you open it up like to get to the smallest doll you can find, right? And it always amazing how small that doll can be, right? It's like a pinprick,
Infinitely small. They just keep going
infinitely
smaller
small.
and
It just
smaller and
keeps
smaller.
smaller. And it's like, so every time we train, we try to develop and go deeper and deeper into ourselves, right? And that's what I like. Now, in a 1 hour class, I mean, I don't know how many dolls we can open up like that, right? But if you extrapolate it for a year, now it's a different story, right? So I really hope people listening to this understand that striking is a simple topic, but it's quite deep, and you should make it deep, because I mean, what else do we have to do with our training, right? We're not here to just go shallow, right? We're here to kind of go deep if we can, right?
It's way more
So
fun and beautiful.
yeah, and we'll cover strikes again in probably another month or so, maybe a month or 2 months, as we go through the different topics. And every time we come back with it, we'll go a little bit deeper because we've already covered this, so we'll go quicker through it, right? Much like going through a forest. Every time you go through a forest, you feel comfortable where you are, and you go a little bit deeper and a little bit deeper and a little bit deeper. But you don't want to go so deep right away you can't find your way out, which is what most people do, right? You want to be able to at least have markers and comfort to go to find your way out, right?
Mhm.
So it's super, super interesting for me. There's a journey that we're all on, and there's a gift we're all trying to share, and we need to be on the lookout for those things, and understand that there are markers to our training. So I hope that's kind of like, I'm sure you probably had a million questions, but I think
It's great.
I kind of,
This is great.
yeah, you got
Yeah.
so much. Yeah, I think what we've said is already like so much for people to digest, right? But if I could just in closing, have people just do more with your fists and outside of training, like walk with your fists like in a push-up, right? Walk on the walls, maybe in the garage, nothing a good wall, and develop the sensitivity that you need on them for what the job is. And then when you're when you're doing an effort, it doesn't matter what it is, standing up from a chair, going for a walk, lifting something, you always want to find the right effort, right? And if somebody asks you a question, try to look for the right word or the right amount that needs to be said for that, right? And this is it's wonderful, right? When you're eating, try to look for the right amount of food that will just make you content, not more, right? Where like look at those things with just the right amount is quite powerful, right? It takes real skill to know what the right amount is, And that's really, and training for that is like 24/7. That's like all the time. What's the right amount of sleep? What is the right amount of sleep? What's the right, like, I'll take a nap in the afternoon. I love taking my little afternoon nap. If 20 minutes, I'm great. 30 minutes, I feel great. If I go for an hour, Eric, I'm like, it's the worst. I'm like, it's too much. I feel sluggish. So but see, we know the right amount like that. But what about all the other things, right? So we just got to take that care. And you might not learn it right away. It just takes some time. So I'll leave that with everybody to kind of practice, and then next week we'll go deeper. I think maybe next week we'll study legs. We'll try to see if we can develop our legs, much like we developed our arms, and then kind of connect it. But we'll see. I mean, this is quite special week. It's for the Orthodox. It's it's our Good Friday today, and this weekend Sunday is a big day. Saturday, the whole weekend's a big day. So it's very spiritual this weekend.
Wait, is this
So
Good Friday in like Easter
the
for
Orthodox,
Greek
yeah,
Orthodox?
for the Orthodox, yeah, today's Good Friday for them.
Oh,
So it is,
cool.
yeah. So it's quite spiritual day, and I always have, obviously you quite spiritual, but more special this time. So special prayer for everybody, for sure. That is that I know. I'll be thinking of all of you, and then we'll continue on Monday. We'll continue the training on Monday. We'll see where it goes. I'll let somebody talk through me to see where we're gonna go.
Thank you, Emmanuel.
You're so welcome, Eric. You take care of yourself. It's so wonderful. Have a wonderful weekend. Thoughts and prayers to you, and I will see you on Monday and see everybody on Monday. Okay. Thank you, my friend.
Thank
All
you.
the best. All the best. Bye bye.